It's the How Games Make Money podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Grubb from GamesBeat.com. This is the show where I talk to people working in and around games and ask them, how does this business work? Is it just non-stop console launches? New episodes come out each Monday. On this episode, I have a special guest. It's Joey Chiu, who is my friend and a gamer. He was also the first person to buy a PlayStation 4. I don't know if you remember, but if you go back to November 2013 and look through news stories from the launch of that console, you'll find plenty about Joey waiting in line to get the first PS4 in New York City. I actually hung out with Joey that week. I was in town for the PS4 launch event. It was one of my first events in the industry. That was the event where Sony enabled journalists to get hands-on time with the machine and face-to-face time with the developers. And at night we would mingle, if you remember what that word even means. And Joey was there, and I knew him from our time in the 1UP community. So we talked and hung out, and then a few days later, his photo was everywhere as the first person to buy a PS4. It was pretty cool. Well, I realized I haven't had a gamer's perspective on the show up to this point, so I wanted to do that, and who could possibly be better than the first PS4 owner? I don't think there's anyone better. This will give me a chance to take his temperature on the PS5, get a gamer's perspective. We recorded this just before Sony announced its Wednesday PS5 Showcase, so we don't have those details, but we did go over kind of each possible price point and try to figure out if Joey was going to be among the first to buy a PS5. So yeah, look forward to that conversation. It's coming right up. First though, thank you for listening. You can get more from me at GamesBeat.com. Email the podcast at jeff.grubb@gmail.com with the subject line, How Games Make Money. Or reach out on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Grubb. The podcast is at HGMM Show. Finally, I did start that Patreon. You can support the show. We've got a lot of support so far. A lot of people hanging out in the Discord, having great conversations. It's a really awesome community already. I really appreciate that. If you can support the show by going to patreon.com/HGMM, I would really appreciate that. Anything you could provide will help keep the show going. And just thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's get on with the show. Okay, joining me now is Joey. Joey, go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
I'm glad you could join me. I wanted to have you on because I'm like thinking back about, to the last time we did this whole console launch thing and where I was at, and I was just kind of getting started professionally writing about games. And one of my first events was going out to New York for Sony's PlayStation 4 launch thing, where they had us all basically stay at a hotel and then go downstairs into the lobby or whatever, and then they had it all sectioned off for Sony stuff, and we saw the PlayStation 4. But then they would have events at night, and I remember you were there, and you hung out with us for a little bit, and that's where I kind of first really talked to you a bunch. And then the next day or the next week or something, I think it was the next day, the PlayStation 4 launched, and you were first in line to get it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back, I'm like, I wonder how Joey's feeling about this whole there's probably not going to be, it's going to be a weird physical launch. I guess that's it. What are your plans for getting your hands on a PlayStation 5? Are you even going to be buying one day one?
Can they give us the price? Can they give us the release date?
Right. So, how are you feeling about that? It's weird. By this time, last time, we definitely knew, we had known since E3, and it was really easy to get excited about, okay, $400, I can save that much money. I'll be ready to go. November, whenever they gave the date or whatever it was, November 20, I don't know. You would probably remember better than me. I guess, yeah. So, are you, so if it comes out and it's $500, are you going to be able to get it?
Being able to, I mean,
yeah. Is that are you going to be there day one, $500 is no problem, I'm going to buy that. Yeah, let's do it.
It is contingent on a lot of things. One is we're going into it. Okay, PS4 was 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
I'm a very different person 7 years from then to right now. I'm sitting on a huge backlog of PS4 stuff, let alone everything else I own, hardware wise, that I do want to get into, sink my teeth into. There's stuff that I think they've said something along the lines of PS5 will be able to play PS4 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of accessibility to those games, that would be a big help to motivate. But then also we need to know all the features. We need to know all the stuff. They've said, oh, you can play 4K discs on it, and it's well, that's nice. Definitely couldn't do that on the PS4 Pro. and like it's coming down to price. Yeah, so like $400 seems like seems like it's $400 is a lot of money, but then like for some reason it feels like an okay price, mostly because again the last generation started like that, and now well, like Microsoft's at the table, so now it's like Sony. Like, what are you gonna say?
Yeah, and so to kind of give people background there, Microsoft just announced today, they confirmed that the Xbox Series X is $500, and that's coming November 10th. The Xbox Series S, the like 1080p 1440p version of the console, is $300. And Sony has two SKUs ready to go that they've announced. It's the PlayStation 5 and then the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition, but they haven't said anything about price other than. I guess Jim Ryan in a couple interviews has said they are working very hard to ensure that the value is there for people, which to me suggests it's going to be expensive, right? Like, is that what it sounds like to you?
Oh, definitely. Like, it's very much. It sounds like it's going to be real pricey, but we're going to make it worth it for you. And it's like that sounds like another way of saying you'll make it so you want to take a second job to pay for a PS3.
It does sound like it's in that. It's not quite as bad as saying that, but it sounds like it's in that same ballpark. But I mean, we don't know. Like, Microsoft did set the table, like you said. And it came out. And it was $500 for the more expensive Xbox. Do you think that there's any possibility that the PlayStation 5 comes out and is more than that?
More than 500?
Yeah.
I feel like, oh god, it might.
It's right. You don't want to discount the possibility, right? Like, I'm hopeful that it's not. I'm hopeful that my gut tells me that it's going to be $500 for the PlayStation 5, and then they'll find one like either it'll be $450 for the digital edition, or maybe the digital edition will be $500, and the more expensive one will be $550 maybe. But either way, they'll probably find a way to have a PlayStation 5 right around that $500 price frame. But you don't know. Maybe that was never their plan. Maybe they're feeling confident, and they should be. They've had a lot of success with the PS4. There's a lot of people who are very, very excited to get the PlayStation 5, and with that much demand and limited supply, especially through probably the first year or so, they probably could set a higher price. So to me, it's like I want to brace myself for that higher price. Let's go back to you then. So in 2013, you were ready to pick up a new console because you hadn't built up years and years of a backlog, and now you're saying you're a different person because you have been building up this library, and getting onto the next thing isn't necessarily like a day one concern for you. Is that the difference?
Well, 2013 and now, in terms of jumping into the next gen.
Yeah. Is it as much of a concern to get on the PS5 as it was to get on the PS4, and what's the difference basically?
Not to bring the real world into this, but this year is very different than 2013. Mm-hmm. Just the messaging around the systems before they came out. We had all the events, we had all the preview coverage for the systems. So on PS4, you had the February blowout that didn't just show the system. It also talked a good game about the first year of games that we were going to get, both indie and the big blockbuster stuff. This year we got a recording of what presumably was a GDC panel with Mark Cerny, and then around E3 time there was a produced direct style video, which did talk about some stuff that you would presume is year one games. We got a look at the Spidey Miles Morales, we got Ratchet. But then going into this generation, we're not seeing a lot that's this is why you want to jump into.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of stuff you can't miss out on, right? There's stuff that I know it's going to be there when I'm ready for it, but it doesn't feel like anything that you have to immediately jump on and get in. And there's still plenty of PS4 games that I haven't played as well, where I'm if I hold out, I'll be fine. If you were going to go out and you were ready for PS5 and you knew everything and you knew the price and you were happy with it, and you looked in your bank account and you're like, I'm ready to go and pick that up. I mean, would you? I mean, because and let's talk about the real world. We're dealing with a situation where it's going and waiting in line. I don't even know if there's going to be lines to pick up consoles. It seems like they might not allow that at many stores. They might try to figure something else out. Or would you just order online to avoid having to be around people during a pandemic?
I will say this: the Sony, that Sony space, around near the Flatiron District, that they that is gone. That is closed. So
oh wow.
So like, unless Sony fills up to renting a whole entire hotel again for their launch event, and then they're going to socially distance the heck out of that. Which I remember the PS4 launch, that was pretty tightly packed for us, like in terms of lining us up around the hotel before they let us in, and then that was still also really packed. So unless they want to socially distance a launch event across a couple like blocks or something, I don't know what they're going to do. Because I'm pretty sure it's not going to be like a big glamour and glitz sort of thing. At this point, definitely can't. You can't afford to do that. It could look bad. And a lot of other public events have happened recently. And then within a day or two, another outbreak. Not outbreak, but like stuff has COVID happened.
Right? Yes.
Like,
Smash Mouth gave 200,000 people COVID or whatever it was. Is that sad? Are you sad that you won't be able to be the first person to buy a PS5, or was it just kind of a fun thing you did with the PS4 and you kind of never expected to do it again?
I'm not gonna lie. Within the past few years, I've been dreading people asking, "Are you gonna be the first to buy a PS5?" I was like, "What do I say to that? I'm even gonna try. Like, I don't even know if I want to go through all that again." That was definitely a fun time. Like, I tell as long as I can remember, I can tell a story that I didn't know that they were gonna do the launch event there, and that would happen to be the first one I lined out, and it was a fun time. Especially in hell year 2020, I don't know that I'm gonna go out of my way to do it, and I'm kind of relieved, like
right.
In that sense that we can all just keep ourselves safe and healthy as best we can while we smash on that F5 to look on where we can pre-order the stuff online. And hopefully for cheap. No, not cheap, but affordable.
Yes, exactly.
Reasonable is the word.
So let's, I feel like at any moment Sony could announce the price. I feel like by the time that I put up this episode, it could be out there. Who knows? Let's go worst case scenario down to best case scenario. Let's say the PlayStation. I guess which one are you going to get? Are you going to get the PlayStation 5 digital edition or the one with the disc drive, or have you not decided yet?
As much as the digital edition looks like way better, I do like the symmetry. If you just look at it straight dead ahead, there's no extra bulge to account for the disc slot. I do value physical media still,
right?
And I'm gonna go for the physical edition. Like the one with the disc drive, yeah. Right.
So that makes sense. And then, okay. So let's say the physical edition is $600. When are you going to get it? I mean, if you don't know, that's fine. If you don't know, that's a fine answer.
I'm not. I mean, I will be honest. I'm not in a rush.
Right.
I'd love to be. I'd love to be with y'all.
Sure.
Day one, be in that conversation, but. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm a little harder to convince right now, unless you got some new info for me.
Right, and then does that hold true if it's $500, or is that a little bit closer to reality where you could see yourself clicking the button on day one if it comes to that?
The difference of $100 is a big difference.
It's a significant amount of money. Yeah, I guess. And then a dream scenario, $400 for a PlayStation 5. Is that an easy day one, or is it still a consideration?
Significantly easier.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. So I hope that we're all able to get it at the price we want. I feel I'm hesitant, and I don't want anyone to get their hopes up, but maybe we'll see. Sony's been holding back this price, and they could drop it in a moment and really surprise us or take us back. They're in a strong position, so we'll have to see how it goes. Joey, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it. It's fun to just kind of reminisce about this stuff a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a fun night there. I remember I'll never forget just kind of hanging out with you, shooting the shit. I don't really feel like I belong here, hanging out with Dan Chiu, and then I'm like, hey, Joey, I know Joey from One Up. We can just hang out and talk. So
yeah.
So thanks, man. I appreciate that. And again, thanks for coming on. And thank you to everybody for listening. I'll be back next week with a new episode. Until then, have a good one and goodbye.